Lesson 4 involves learning CSS. And most of you are more than ready to get started on CSS because it is what makes your pages look really good. And most people find tinkering around with CSS to be kind of fun. Once you learn CSS, you will find that it's the same CSS commands that you can apply to all the different HTML elements. In the book, there is a little section of chapter 3 that you're going to read that kind of corresponds to the CSS we're covering this week. And then you're going to want to come down and go through the lecture and demo. Oh. And so it basically goes through in more detail information about CSS and very specific properties and values that you're going to be using throughout the course. So we start with some terminology, and then there are interactive links so that you can try things out. And I do suggest that you click on these, and you'll see that here we've got some red text. And as far as colors go, there's several different ways to modify colors. And one of the ways is to use something called a color name. And pretty much all of the colors, that you are used to will work. Let's see. So you can key in different colors and see what they look like. So I do recommend coming in here and kind of playing with this because it is helpful to play around with the code because it helps you learn it. And again, I do have different pages that I've created that you can kind of take a look at. This is to show you how you can use styling to change the way H1 text looks. So this is showing you the default for H1, and then here's a line that has CSS applied. And here is the CSS used to create that line. So for those of you that weren't real thrilled with how the 6 different headings look by default, you can make them look any way you want through CSS. Then we get into basically the 3 different ways you can apply CSS, and you will be applying CSS all 3 ways. And again, there are interactive links, which I encourage you guys to use. And then as you go through here, you are going to be basically learning CSS that we will be using throughout the semester. We don't get into CSS 3 yet. CSS 3 deals with animation and all sorts of cool effects. We don't get into those for a couple weeks. Okay? We kind of start with the basics, and then once you guys have a handle on the basics, we get into that more advanced CSS. So this week we are focusing on some of the most commonly used CSS styles and how to apply them. We cover how to change color. 3 different ways you can change color. Okay, and on a web page, color is a big deal. Okay, so I have lots of resources for selecting colors, and you guys are going to get exposure to all of those. Okay, and then not just how to change color of text, but how to change the background color. And then we get a little bit into color theory, because it is kind of important for you guys to understand, how colors are created, how you can determine what colors look good. If you take a look at these poor websites, things that those really bad sites have in common is poor use of color, and they also are usually really cluttered and poorly laid out. Okay, so also have examples of good sites. Good sites are usually have a very clean layout and a very nice color scheme. So we do get into colors here, and then how you can pick colors that look good together. One of the ways that you can specify color is using a hexadecimal number. And this is nothing you'd ever be tested on. But for those of you that are curious, there is an explanation here of how those hexadecimal numbers work. So for those of you that have seen hexadecimal values and you're wondering what the heck are they, how do they work, this explains it. Several different resources you guys can use that will help you select color. And we can just kind of take a look. Now this is just a color picker. Okay, so you can actually pick different shades and it's giving you the hex value. Okay, but you'll notice if you click on it, you're also getting an RGB. So we got a hex, we got an RGB. And then if we go back in here, if you're looking for colors that actually look good together, you may want to go to one of these other sites. So the Adobe site has all sorts of different complementary schemes. And you can actually move the items on the wheel around. And then it can give you complementary colors. And they're usually based off of whatever's in the center, the base color here. And you can actually change that base color by dragging just like I did, or you can actually adjust it here as well. Okay, so this is a great site. And you'll notice that it's giving you the hex values, but it's also giving you the RGB values over here. Okay, and there's additional sites you can check out. A lot of people like to pull color from images, so this tells you how to upload to Lunapic and the command that you need to use to get the most used colors in your image. Okay, so definitely you guys want to read through this, work through the examples, look at how to apply color to backgrounds. And then we get into fonts and web safe fonts. You should know that these are combinations of fonts that most computers will understand and support, which is kind of important because not all computers support all fonts. Okay, then we also get into what a web font is, and we've already used some web fonts. I've had you guys use Google Fonts, and that is considered a web font. This actually tells you how to find your own Google Fonts. Okay, so if that is something that you're interested in doing. So as you read through here, I think you guys will find that the commands that I've included are ones that you're going to be using over and over and over again. And you'll notice that for really popular CSS3 styles, I actually include them a little early. I don't make you wait for some of these really popular CSS3 effects. And adding a shadow to your text is super popular. And so as you read through here, you're going to get a pretty good understanding of CSS. And then you're going to go into the textbook assignment. This is where you're actually going to be applying the CSS that you have learned. And so what you're going to do, you're going to start by setting up your folder, do your folder structure. Then there's files that you are going to download to very specific folders. And I'm actually giving you files here so that you don't have to key everything in, and you can just kind of focus in on the CSS. And in the textbook assignment, you'll notice that each little section has a video that you can play while you are working through the exercise. Okay, and the fastest, easiest way to complete these exercises is to play the video while you are working on it. And then once you finish the textbook assignment, you're going to work on the lab assignment. And I did create a little video overview for this that kind of walks through what you need to do for the lab assignment, because there's two separate parts. But basically, that detail summary page that you created last week, you're going to copy into this week. And you're going to pick a color scheme for it, and you're going to apply some CSS to it. And so here's my example of how my cat page ended up looking, and yours is going to look similar. Okay, then part 2 is updating your assignment page. So we've got some lesson 4 links that we need to add to this page, and you are also going to be adding CSS styling to the page. Okay, so minimum styling that you need is listed. And I always list minimums. So if you want to do more, awesome. You can do more. But this is the minimum that you need to get all the points. And I did a little mock-up of an example down here. And if you wanted to see that CSS, I do have a link so you can kind of review it. The last thing in lesson 4 is a little discussion forum exercise. And again, make sure you guys do the discussion forums, because it's an easy 10 points, and those points add up. So basically, what you're going to do is, if there's any CSS property, okay, by the time you get down to this discussion, you've been working with CSS for a while, okay, you've done a couple assignments with it. Is there any CSS property that you want to know a little bit more about? Okay, and so if there is, do a little Google search on it. So let's say I wanted to know a little bit more about text shadow. So I could say text shadow CSS. W3 Schools is actually an awesome resource. Okay. CSS Tricks is also really good. So you guys need to kind of develop your own little library of resources. I would take a look at a couple pages, find one that you like. Okay, you're going to read through it. This is actually a pretty good site. And then you're going to click the address, Control-C to copy. Come back over here, add a new discussion topic. So I would probably do text shadow. And then I click in here, press Control and V as in vase. That gives the link so other people can access the page. And then give a little summary of what the purpose of the property is. Okay, so basically this one adds a shadow effect, but you can also use it to outline text. So I would, in a couple sentences, indicate what that CSS property is used for. And then you're going to submit yours and read other students and reply to at least one. Okay, so that is what you need to do for lesson 4. And for this week, lesson 4 is going to take you a little bit longer than lesson 5. I think lesson 5 is a little easier.